Good morning, everybody. Today, to begin the set of presentations that we have in this wonderful Thailand, beginning the PG Day, I'm going to do what's called a sponsor talk, because AWS is a sponsor, so people told me, you need to do a talk. Okay. And this talk is specifically about talking about the community of PostgreSQL and how AWS works with the community itself. So my name is Michael Paquier. I am, next slide, a few words about me to give you a little bit of context. I am French, and as you can hear from likely my accent, and I am based in Tokyo now for 15 years. Since 2009. I'm working at AWS since 2022, but I happen to work on PostgreSQL for much longer time than that. If you look at PostgreSQL.org and the list of contributors, my name is listed as a major contributor, and I work on PostgreSQL in terms of writing new features, do reviews, commit stuff, get complaints from other people about the work I do. And also I happen to have a blog which is not active. I also work as a maintainer of the project itself, as we call in the PostgreSQL world as a committer. We are currently a pool of 30 committers in the world. I am one of those today here. My colleague, John Naylor, on the first rank here. John, raise your hand. Is also a committer, and we work at the same team of AWS. So what I'm going to do today, I'm talking about the community because PG, it's a PG day. We are a community, so I want to communicate a little bit about that. So to split things a little bit, I'm going to give a few words in the community about the community itself. Just to say that I've done this presentation once in Tokyo. So people who were in Tokyo, for example, I can see at least two of them here, Inaba-san and Nagata-san. Hi. Who know this talk, but this one is a much shorter version, but I still want to drive the same message. And I'm giving a few words about how AWS works with the PostgreSQL community, what kind of infrastructure we have created, and how we try to make the PostgreSQL community greater, and how we try to do what we do. The last part is giving 2 examples about what we have contributed back to PostgreSQL to give you some idea about why we actually did that. But it's not only that. So just to give a few words about the community itself, about the community. This is a diagram that's not from me. It's from somebody who is working at EnterpriseDB called Laetitia Lavrot that gives an excellent image of how the community is structured in terms of members. People may think that PostgreSQL is the core code itself. It's not only that. You have a structure and people around that do not only work on the code, but do much more than that. But this graph gives a pretty good image of what people do and how we actually do things on the community side. On the left side, it's what I would call the core part of PostgreSQL itself. We have people inside the core team made of 6 members. People around that are the committers in charge of the code. But it's not only that. We have people who are in charge of developing the code, developers, hackers, people who do reviews, people who do translation as well. Because PostgreSQL as a project supports, I don't know how many languages, perhaps 7, 10, I don't know. But we have people who do translations of the error strings we have, or the strings we have in the core code. So we have people, but not only that, people who do conferences, people who are, for example, sitting there in charge of the organization, making sure that we are able to do presentation like today. Like people who are there doing that are also are part of this community and do contributions to PostgreSQL. That's what symbolizes the right part of that when you do anything related to advocacy, running meetups, users groups, working on extension, the PostgreSQL ecosystem itself, not only the core. So at large, the community is a lot of concepts bundled together to do what I would call the PostgreSQL world, or the PostgreSQL community as a whole. To give you some numbers in 2024 in terms of the PostgreSQL project for the core code itself, we have 7 core members, a pool of 30 committers. I hope my numbers are not wrong. The security team is made of 17 people, people in charge of PostgreSQL.org, 6 people, And as of PostgreSQL 17, and I hope my count is right, we have a number of 463 people who have contributed to the PostgreSQL core code for this release. It's not the extension, it's the PostgreSQL core. But there is much, much more than that. Contribution means somebody who has changed the documentation, submitted a patch, provided a review, tested something, authored something, or even just committed something like what we do when we push a patch into PostgreSQL. So to give you an idea about how PostgreSQL grows across time, on a yearly basis, we gain in terms of new C code. If you remove comments or anything related to new structures and C code, we grow by roughly 300,000 lines of code every year. The pool of committers and the number of people we have who maintain the code does not change a lot over time, meaning that on an individual basis, the number of lines we need to maintain in PostgreSQL grows over time. So we need to grow people, to grow the community, and to help people maintain PostgreSQL, and to make it scale with the way the code base has been growing over the past 15 years. The last one is 17 that has been released last September. So the second part of this talk is about how AWS tries to fit into that and how we actually work with the community itself. The first reason is, why would we actually do that? To put it very, very simply, PostgreSQL is loved at AWS, and it's what we call a strategic component. Basically, we use it a lot. We use it in a lot of ways, in a lot of integrated products that you may know about, like, for example, Amazon RDS, PostgreSQL, Amazon Aurora. There is much more than that. I'm not going into the details. The point is that we need to work with the community to help the community thrive, because it's good for the community, it's good for the users, but also it happens that it helps AWS because we can have responsiveness when we hear something from customers, users, or even people from the community to say, you could do that better as well. So to put it in very simple words, we try to anticipate the needs sometimes. We try sometimes to build things that we hear from the customer stories, and we try to proactively interact with the community to make things happen in the PostgreSQL core code. Where do we, what kind of areas do we touch, and where do we actually interact with the community? We do quite a little bit, actually. I did mention core previously, but it's not only that. The core code is in terms of new features, extensions, bug fixes. We also are involved in security. We do driver work. For example, one of my colleagues is called Dave Kramer, who does work on the JDBC Java driver, and he's one of the main maintainers. He works in the same team as us. He's not directly involved in PostgreSQL, but his work on the client part is similarly critical, because if you don't have a client, you cannot use the server and the core code. We have also extensions, infrastructure work, packaging releases where we are involved in that. And like today, conferences, doing talks, participating in selecting talks, helping people do events, meetups. One of my colleagues, Sami Kumar, I wanted to mention his name. He is raising his hand here. He is the one who has helped in selecting the talks, right, for the PG Day today. And this is a contribution itself that AWS does back to the community to shape it. So who is actually part of the team? So this is a set of numbers for the people who are actually in the team I am working in that we call the PostgreSQL contributor team. So currently, we have one core member among the 7. We have a pool of 7 committers among the 30 existing committers who are working at AWS now. So we try to invest in people at AWS and proactively work with the community to get things done. 4 security members, 10 major contributors. It doesn't mean that we are 20-something. It's not the sum of that. I am a major contributor, committer, security team members. We have people who do module work, advocacy as well, like Samir, who is there and is not counted there. But it's just to give you a little bit of an idea of how much we are involved based on the community global numbers. In terms of feature contributions, this is for the last 4 releases. So if you look at the release notes, you have a certain number of entries. And this percentage reflects the number of entries where at least 1% of AWS shows up. So it's just to show that for the last 2 years, since I've joined, the numbers have bumped up because somebody from AWS is involved in basically 25% of the release notes when it comes to PostgreSQL. We may have in a single entry more than 1 people listed. That's just to give you an idea that I think there was 180 release note entries in the code. 25 of them had at least 1% of AWS involved in that, listed in the release notes. It may not actually be the review, it's the author part of it, but it's just based on the contents of the release notes, because we don't quote reviewers when it comes to that. Some contribution numbers in 2024 in terms of authorship, which tracks the number of commits that have been actually authored by somebody from AWS. Roughly 10% of them. All branches means that this also includes bug fixes, installable branches that we need to maintain for 5 years on the community side, which tracks for 9.2%. Authorship is people who writes the patch, not the committer. Committer is the person who gets the patch, pushes it into the central repository. In terms of committers, we have roughly 20% of the commits that are new into PostgreSQL 17 that have been committed by somebody who is employed by AWS. In terms of all the branches, maintenance, this is 16.5%. Credit of those numbers go to Joe Conway, who is the manager of the team John and I are actually being part of. So Joe gave me those numbers just to show the impact we have on the community side. So how much time do I have left? 5 minutes? Okay, so I still have a little bit of time, right? Okay, so we may have a little bit of time for Q&A. This is the last part of the talk. I'm not going to take a lot more of your time, but just to give you 2 examples of things we have contributed back to the community based on stories and problems we have heard from our customer base. So the first one is very simple, collations. It's quite a known problem that for the last 15, perhaps 20 years, I don't know, I'm perhaps exaggerating those numbers. If you do a Linux upgrade, if you do an upgrade of ICU, well, those libraries are not very good in terms of backward compatibility. Why is that important when it comes to PostgreSQL? Simply, you care about the ordering of the strings you use. You have one string A, a string B, but what you want to do in databases is be able to sort them. You need a set of rules to be able to sort them. Those rules are defined in glibc or ICU, basically. So it means that the sort ordering is not something PostgreSQL controls. It's something that PostgreSQL outsources to other libraries, and in those cases, it's libc and ICU. It happens that those 2 components are not that good at maintaining ordering. So sometimes you do an upgrade of ICU, an upgrade of glibc, and you notice strange patterns showing up in the shape of broken indexes, for example, because, for example, B-tree relies on the ordering of the text data. If you upgrade an index based on a text column, suddenly, well, it does not point to what it should. Meaning that this can show up in multiple ways, like, for example, duplicated primary keys because your index does not point to the correct heap tuple. While crash, the data is intact, but your indexes basically get broken suddenly. And you hear customers complaining about that. AWS has a large user base. When we have many instances, it means that we need to be able to scale with that and to automate what we can do. But outsourcing this kind of logic has its limits, even if you control the OS or what you can do. Because, for example, even for normal users, people like using their own version of ICU, libc. And we've done a little bit of work in this area to try to improve the situation. next one. So the first one I wanted to mention is something that Joe Conway is completely crazy, really. It's what Joe has done is called the libc compatibility library. He has done a presentation about that at PGCon 2 years ago. That was in Ottawa. And what Joe has done is patching glibc and ensure backward compatibility of the text ordering subroutines we have in glibc. So you basically patch glibc, you upgrade to a new version, and using this patch, you can make sure that the text ordering that you had for an index based on the past version of glibc still has the same ordering. Basically, you upgrade glibc and your indexes are not broken. I invite you to go to this link. The slides have been given to the organizers, so this has much more details, but that's one thing that we've done. There is a little bit more to that. In PostgreSQL 17, a colleague of mine called Jeff Davis, who is also a committer of Postgres, has decided that it may not be a good idea to outsource the fact that we do the sort ordering to other libraries. What if PostgreSQL did it itself? Jeff has been working on that, and he has introduced a concept of what is called built-in collations, meaning that PostgreSQL can control how strings are sorted based on some logic that it knows about. So we do not depend on glibc or ICU when it comes to the string ordering. In order to be able to use that, you need to set up the option when you use initdb. And you say local provider, it's the built-in one inside PostgreSQL, and it works with a UTF-8. The implementation is based on a code point ordering that happens also to be a little bit more efficient than libc or even ICU when you do string ordering. This is based on some work that somebody named Jeremy Schneider and Jeff Davis have been doing, and this is a presentation they've been doing at ICU, at pgconf.dev last year, that gives you a little bit more insights, and I'm not going to dive into the details here. So another set of things we've been doing, it's not only that, just to give you another example, in terms of logical application, we have heard from customers that you cannot really run a PG upgrade if you have a logical application, because data associated to logical application, replication slots, or even replication origins are not copied over to the new cluster. So if you do an upgrade, it means that you need to do a resynchronization of your data from the publication node to the subscription node. Some work coming from Fujitsu mainly, led by Amit Kapila, means that we have added support for PG upgrade, and this is also some work I have been a little bit involved in, as well as one of my colleagues, Masahiko Sawada, who is now in the US. Point is that we can now use PG upgrade with the logical application setups. Your data is copied transparently as long as your origin node is at least based on 17. And yes, we also do a bunch more things, but it's just to give you an idea about the problem we had, what we heard from customers, and what we actually did on the PostgreSQL side, on the community itself. I think it's everything I had. It's a little bit shortened. We do much more than that. If you just look at the numbers, I have authored myself a little bit a few features to Postgres across the ages. So we still have time for the questions, right? Yes. So if you have any kind of questions, feel free. And thank you as well for coming in today.
Very good, Paquier. Thank you. Any questions from the audience on this interesting topic and participation by AWS? Any asks? It is still early, so I understand everybody's still warming up. Yeah, but yeah, very interesting to see Amazon being so active in this space and committing. I guess long-term, this is, as you say, strategic asset, strategic initiative. Curious though, do you see, maybe just your thoughts on what could get the community more excited or more involved to become more active in contributing to Postgres? What would you recommend individuals to do to get more closer to this?
So one thing that we've noticed is that the number, I mean, it's very hard to attract new contributors into the project because PostgreSQL is seen as an old and boring technology, which actually is one of its main qualities. People like new fancy projects, and we also do everything on an email basis, which is kind of a little bit old school. We try to put a little bit more effort into working with the people, with attracting new contributors, try to educate them. If you, for example, are able to go to Montreal, which may be hard depending on what you do here, we have Discord server where we try to educate new contributors, what we expect from them. It's hard, it demands investments, but in the long term, you can do a full career on that, which is what people like John and me basically do, because PostgreSQL is here to stay. It's old, it's boring, which actually makes it good. And we have users, people who actually want it to even grow even more. Growing people to lead the community aspects is a critical piece of one big puzzle that we try to solve. I know it's philosophical and blurry line, but we try to go there and to help new people introduce new technologies. And AWS is great in providing us support to make things better. So we try to do what we can.
Excellent. Oh, a question there. Thank you.
Hi, speaking of community, could you speak about Postgres presence in Asia? In your experience, which countries are active with any advocacy or core team work? I'd be interested to hear about even ASEAN, or maybe if just Japan or Thailand or Asia as a whole, since, as we're here. Thank you.
So to give a short answer to that, Japan has the biggest community of PostgreSQL users in Asia in terms of history, mainly because we have an organization called JPUG, the Japan PostgreSQL Users Group, which is the largest users group in the world in terms of members. Perhaps Inabasan or Nakata-san know, but how many members does JPUG has? Do you know? 1,000 or I don't know. But I mean, it's kind of one of the biggest ones. Other thing is that in terms of committer pool, the existing committers, I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 people who are actually based in Japan in terms of committers, and contributors also as well. So in terms of participation to core, Japan is by far the biggest contributor to the core code of Postgres. Yes, but the country has a long history as well working with the project.
Okay, so we are up for time, but I think that's a great question and perhaps more to delve into in terms of Southeast Asia and the rest of the region getting involved. So thank you very much, Mika. That's really appreciated. Maybe a round of applause.
And thank you for coming today. I'm here the full day, so if you have any questions, feel free to catch me in case.
Excellent. Thank you so much.